Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Com 300 Interviewers and Interviewing. This is our last week to prepare before the big employment interview project that's coming up. So we have a lot to talk about, but in this video, I'm just going to be discussing Chapter 8. So last week, we discussed your role as the recruiter. So that would be the person who's asking the questions, the person who is hiring for the company that the applicant is applying for. Now we're going to talk about your role as the applicant. You are the person who is answering the questions and who is trying to sell yourself to this position, indicating that you are the best fit for this position. So let's dive on in and talk about some of the principles of Chapter 8 and what you're going to have to do for this project when you perform your interview. So to start, with any interview, you have to create a good first impression. This applies if you are doing an interview in person, or as in our case for this class, you're doing a video interview, which you are very likely to encounter in your lifetime. So first, they're going to be assessing your attitude. So you have to come in with a good attitude. So that means showing genuine interest in the position, that you're excited to work there. You have to show confidence in yourself. So if you go in nervous, unsure of yourself, they will be able to tell that. So it's that old mantra, fake it until you make it. Act like you are the best person in the world for this job, and that confidence will show through in the interview. You also want to keep everything positive, even when you're talking about negative experiences. So you never want to trash talk a past employer or a past workplace or any of your coworkers. And you also don't want to talk down on yourself. Even when you're talking about your weaknesses, you need to frame it as a positive experience, that it's something you're working on, that it's something that you still gain value from. So everything has to be flipped into a positive. You also have to be prepared, so that involves doing research on the organization, on the job that you're going to be doing, and even on the recruiter that you're going to be interviewing with. Who is this person? What are their qualifications? And of course, you need to be professional the entire time, display good manners and good communication skills. And then next, you need to be conscious of your nonverbal communication. So this is a video call. They can see your face and your upper body, so you still need to practice good nonverbal communication. So that would be portrayed through your voice, your tone, your volume. You need to maintain eye contact, even though it is through a video call. You need to still look at the screen. You need to have appropriate gestures. Don't be like clicking a pen the whole time or playing with your hair. You need to have good posture, so don't be slumped down in your seat. You have to have appropriate mannerisms, and you have to appear awake and alert. So make sure you get a good night's rest, you're not yawning, or you don't appear visibly exhausted during the interview. As for interview etiquette, you have to arrive early, or if in the case of a video interview, you have to sign in on time, ready to go. Absolutely no gum during any interview that you go to. Make sure you silence your cell phone, and that includes watches, your laptop, any other thing that could go off and disturb the interview. And as the applicant, you always let the recruiter take the lead. So they're the ones that are going to be starting the small talk and engaging in dialogue and getting the whole interaction rolling. You just kind of follow their lead. If they're very jovial, laughing, making jokes, you kind of mimic that and you match their energy. But if they appear very serious, formal, and stern, you also want to match their demeanor. And of course, as I mentioned, good manners. So calling them by their appropriate name, yes ma'am, no ma'am, please and thank you, and making sure you take turns when talking and don't interrupt them. And finally, dress and appearance, which I will go into greater detail about, but basically, what I'm looking for in this class is business formal or business casual attire. Typically for an interview, if you're not sure what to wear, business formal is always a good guess because you don't want to be underdressed. You want to always appear neat and clean. You don't want to bring a large backpack or a large purse if it's an in-person interview. And of course, you want to have limited jewelry and cover any visible tattoos that you might have. So I have more to show you based on what I'm looking for our class. So because this is a video interview, you're only going to be seen from maybe the waist up, but mostly you're going to be seen from about the chest up. So you need to make sure that you have appropriate dress on top of your on the top half of your body. So a suit and tie could be appropriate. I am not requiring that for this class. If you want to dress up to that degree, feel free to. But I understand that as college students, we might not have access to all of these clothing items. So you can wear a suit and tie if you have that. You can also just wear a simple button-up shirt. You could wear a blouse. You could wear a nice cardigan or sweater like the white sweater of the gentleman on the screen. You could wear work-appropriate dresses. So anything that is business formal or business casual, you want to act like you are really going to this interview. So what would you wear in that instance? And I'll escape here for a second. Even what I'm wearing right now would be fine. It's just a normal button-up formal work shirt. So let me know if you have questions about what you can and cannot wear. But these are some guidelines of what you can wear, again, on just the top half of your body. Now, for what you don't want to wear, these things are not encouraged and not allowed. So no t-shirts, definitely no sweatshirts. Yes, people do often show up to interviews wearing those things. I can't believe it, but it is true. You don't ever want to wear a tank top or crop top, anything that's showing your midriff, showing off your arms or your chest area. So nothing revealing. You definitely don't want to wear anything that's ripped or stained or dirty in any way, not even really wrinkled. You definitely don't want to wear any flashy makeup or jewelry. Keep everything quite neutral. And of course, you never want to wear anything that has any logos or symbols or words. So your clothing should be plain, neutral. You are not acting as a walking advertisement here. So just show up professional, show up to this interview in class as if you were really going to an interview. And how would you dress in that instance? If you want to, you can check out the UWM Career Closet. They allow you to go for free to pick up 3 clothing items per semester that are business appropriate. So just go on Google, type in UWM Career Closet, and you should be able to find where you can access free clothing. Okay. So now you're in the interview and you're being asked questions. In any interview situation, you are likely to encounter a set of very common, similar questions that all recruiters have in their back pocket. So for this interview and any interview moving forward in your future, be prepared to answer questions like, tell me about yourself. Now, obviously, you don't want to go off talking about your hobbies and what you like to do in your free time. In an employment interview, you probably want to stick to your professional and educational experience. Why do you want to work for us? And you definitely need to have a good answer for that. You should have done some research into the company, into their values, the products or services that they offer, the work that they do for the community, and you should have some sort of answer for this. Maybe you really like the team, or there's a mentor that you want to work for there. Maybe you really want to level up in this company to advance your career, but you have to have a good answer to this question. What are your strengths and weaknesses? So selling your strengths can be easy, but a lot of people sometimes struggle to get it right. On Canvas, I had everyone turn in the 5-point self-assessment to assess your strengths. So what you want to do is highlight maybe your top 3 strengths that relate to the job posting and what you're going to be doing there, and give an example or a story that demonstrates that strength, rather than just telling them, I have a strong work ethic. So you want to be as specific as possible. And then when you're answering about your weaknesses, you always want to flip it again into a positive. So you could say, sometimes I struggle with time management, but I've been working on it and correcting it through tight scheduling and getting really organized with all of my materials. So you always want to say that it's something that you're working on, or something that's not going to hinder your ability to perform this job. You might encounter what are your short-term career goals and long-term. You should have a good answer for this. If you are clueless and say, I don't know, it doesn't look like you're a very serious applicant that has plans to grow with this company. So even if you're not really sure about your life path, you still should tell them some ideas that you have for your career goals so they know that you've at least thought about it. Why did you leave your position with blank, your previous job? So again, you want to keep it as positive as possible, even if it was a terrible experience. You want to just be honest. Maybe things didn't work out, or you were seeking other opportunities, or you realized that that line of work just wasn't going to help advance your career as you would like. What did you like best about your position? What did you like least? Why should we select you over other applicants? This is your opportunity to highlight your unique value. You want to pick out something that almost nobody else could say. So what is your best skill, your best attribute, and how can you demonstrate that to them through a story or an example? What do you know about our organization? So you don't have to give the whole life story about the organization and when they were founded and all of that, but just state what you know about what they produce, what they do for the community, anything that you've heard about the community, anyone that you know that works there, any recent news, anything that you want to highlight to demonstrate that you actually know something about this place. So those are common questions that you will get and need to prepare an answer for no matter what job interview that you're going to. Now, a requirement for this class, as the applicant, you are required to answer at least one time with a structured answer or an answering technique. And there are 3 of them. So I'm about to go over the 3. It's the mini speech method, the PAR method, and the STAR method. So again, as the applicant in this class, you are required to use one of those while you are answering a question during the interview. So these are just a way to structure the answer so you don't blurt out a bunch of gibberish that is unorganized and difficult to follow. It's just a way to organize your thoughts. So the mini speech method. This allows you to approach questions that require you to tell a story as if you're giving a speech. So these work best for critical incident and hypothetical questions that do not focus on past experiences. So anything that is hypothetical or going to happen in the future, not something that you did in the past, you want to use the mini speech method. And remember, all of the recruiters in this class have to ask either critical incident, hypothetical, or behavioral, so you will have an opportunity to use one of these answering techniques. So for the mini speech method, it looks like this. If you're asked a critical incident or a hypothetical question, you can first give an introduction. So tell the recruiters what you're going to do, or tell the recruiters what you are going to tell them. So this is sort of like a thesis statement or a preview statement, a topic sentence. So you give the introduction in your answer to this question. Then in the body, you tell them and give details and examples. So you give your little topic sentence when you're answering the question, then you give the body, give them details and examples, and then you give your conclusion. Recap what you just told them. So I will give you an example. If I was asked a hypothetical question, let's say you were dealing with an irate customer at work, how would you handle that? I would first start with an introduction. Well, I believe that keeping a calm customer relationship with the business is essential, so I would try to meet them halfway to solve their issue on their terms. That's my introduction. Now I need to give details and examples. For example, I would talk in a very calm tone and try to ask questions first to see what is the issue, what problems the customer is having, and really listen with an empathetic ear and show them with my verbal and nonverbal communication that I'm empathetic, that I'm understanding, and I'm hearing what they have to say. Then I would ask them what they need from me, what we can do to correct the problem, and how we can better serve them. Then I would put it into action and actually start giving them the results that they want, helping them to solve the problem, or directing them to a person that can help them better than myself. And hopefully at the end, we will have a resolved situation, and I would follow up with them later to make sure that everything is on track. So then I would give my conclusion. So to summarize, I would be empathetic with the customer, meet them where they are, ask them lots of questions to try to come up with a solution together. So you can see how that follows kind of like a speech. So you start with an introduction, give them a topic sentence, then you give them a body with details and examples, and then you conclude and give a summary or recap of everything you just told them. So that is how you can structure an answer when you are asked a critical incident or a hypothetical question. Now we have structuring answers for behavioral questions. So again, behavioral questions are when you're asked about a past experience that you had at your work or in your education setting. So this is the STAR method. Again, best for behavior-based questions, and these focus on behaviors and skills that you've built in the past. So first you would describe a situation. That's the S in the STAR. So you describe the setting, include when, where, and whom. So you're kind of setting the scene of this story that you're about to tell. Then you describe the task. So what needed to be done, why, and with what expectations. Basically, what was the goal here? Then action. What action did you take and how did you do it? Walk us through the steps. And results. What were the results, accomplishments, or consequences of this action that you took? So an example, if I was asked, tell me about a time that you worked in a team, I might say, well, in a past class, I had a service learning project where I was placed in a team with 2 other students. The task was that we needed to create a social media campaign for a brand new organization that had no social media setup whatsoever. And we had to teach them the best practices for running a social media and the types of posts that they had to make. So my team and I devised a research plan where we researched all of the major social media platforms they would be using. We researched their target audience and how best to reach them. And then we compiled all of our research into an easy-to-read guide in a binder. And at the end of it all, we handed over this binder to the nonprofit organization we were working for. And the result was that they were able to set up all of their social media platforms and even had ready-to-go posts to be made with a full research plan for the future where they could continue making posts after we were done with the project. So that, I just walked you through the situation. I set the scene, who, where, when, why. I had told you the task and what needed to be done. I told you the actions specifically that me and my team took to accomplish the task, and then the results and what happened as a result of our actions working together. So that is the STAR method for answering behavior-based questions. And then the final method is PAR. It's very similar to the STAR method. Again, it's best for behavior-based questions. It focuses on past performance while emphasizing the skills, leadership, and ability to get the job done. So number 1, you describe the problem, the issue, or the task that you were assigned. Then you describe the actions, the steps you took to solve the problem, and results, the consequences of your actions. So essentially, it's the same thing as the STAR method, but you're not delving so much into setting the scene for them. You just describe what the issue or the problem was that you had to solve, how you solved it specifically, and what steps you took, and then what was the result of all of your actions. Did it work out? Did it not? What did you learn from it? Etc. So again, you have to pick one of these answering techniques and use it during the interview as the applicant. All right, now when you're answering questions, you have to listen and respond appropriately. So that means you have to listen to the whole question and don't try to jump to your answer before they finish talking. You want to think before you speak. It's perfectly acceptable to pause for 3 seconds or ask them, can I have a moment to think about that? You don't want to just start rambling and hope that eventually you get to a good answer. It's perfectly okay to take a step back and think before you start talking and really think about what's the first word that you want to come out of your mouth. You want to structure your answers clearly, so using one of the answering techniques that we just discussed, or just making sure that your answers are organized, coherent, and easy to understand, that we can follow your train of thought. You want to provide substance. So that would be stories, examples, concrete descriptions of your past experiences and what you've done. You don't want to give vague statements like, well, I've always had a really good work ethic and I'm great working in a team. You want to give way more details than that and give examples of you working in a team and give examples of you organizing your time well. You want to aim your answer at the point of the question. So you don't want to provide a bunch of flowery language and nonsense. You just want to cut straight to the point and answer the question directly. You want to show enthusiasm in each answer. So give a little energy, give a little confidence in your answer, seem enthused and passionate about what you're talking about. You want to ask follow-up questions as needed. Don't be afraid to ask for clarification or ask them for more information if you need it. You don't have to do this all the time, but don't be afraid to if you need to. And of course, you need to know when to stop. So you don't just want to ramble on and on and on. You don't want to repeat yourself a bunch of times. You need to know when your answer is sufficient and when to cut yourself off. And of course, you want to be honest and authentic. You don't want to lie or make up anything during the interview. You don't want to exaggerate any of your experiences. Just pick the experiences that you can honestly talk about and then talk about them genuinely. Some more guidelines on answering questions. Like we said, you want to think before you respond, listen to the whole question, organize your thoughts so that you don't ramble, cut to the point and answer directly. Every answer should demonstrate how you are a good fit for the job. So always think about what they are looking for in the applicant. Refer back to that job posting and the skills that they're looking for. And every experience that you have, you don't just want to talk about your past. You always want to connect it to the present and future within this role and how you're going to use those skills and experiences for them. Again, frame everything as a positive experience. You want to have a concrete story or example to illustrate your strengths. You want to show us, don't just tell us. So don't give vague statements like, I have a strong work ethic, or I am highly motivated and driven. You can use that as maybe a topic sentence, but then delve into a story or give examples of how you've been motivated. Maybe you've been known to stay after really late at work to get a project done. Maybe you're highly dedicated to customer service and you're even answering them in your off time. I don't know what you do to demonstrate that you have a strong work ethic or you're motivated, but you want to give examples. And then again, as a reminder, for hypothetical and critical incident questions, use the mini speech method. For behavior-based questions, use STAR or PAR method to organize your answer and respond coherently. Okay, and then for this interview, you need to ask one question of the recruiter. So at the end of the interview, your recruiter is going to ask you, do you have any questions for me? And you should have a good question prepared and ready to go. So, as I said, you have to ask at least one question. You could ask two if you wanted to, but in the interest of time, I'm only requiring one. You have to ask a question that is open-ended, and it has to be about the position or the organization, and you can ask follow-up questions too if necessary. You want to prepare more questions than you will need. Maybe that question would be answered at some point in the interview, in which case then it doesn't make sense to ask it anymore. It would be irrelevant. You only want to ask questions that are important. So don't ask something trivial and something that doesn't really matter to your role in this organization. You want to avoid questions about salary and benefits during the screening interview. So that's the first round interview that you're going to have. As you go along the interview process in real life, that conversation about salary and benefits will definitely come up, but you don't want to discuss it in the first round interview, and definitely not in the interview in our class. You do not want to ask questions that can be answered on the company website. This doesn't reflect well on you as the applicant. It says that you didn't really do a lot of research and didn't even bother to spend a couple minutes looking at their website, which is readily available. So some question pitfalls that you want to avoid when asking a question of the recruiter. The have to question. So would I have to work overtime? So you don't want to ask anything that seems like the work that they want you to do is going to be a chore or unpleasant or that you don't want to do it. You want to instead phrase this as, what is the work schedule like? Or something along the lines where you're asking about the schedule or the hourly requirements or something like that, but you don't want to say, do I have to? That framing of it just comes across as negative. You want to avoid the me question. So these are questions that focus on things that really only benefit yourself. So what are the vacation packages like here? Or am I going to get to take breaks on the job? Those are things that only focus on you and things that benefit you. You want to avoid that. And again, the uninformed question. So tell me about the job position and like what I would be doing. Well, you should go read the job posting and read more about the company website and what your role would be. So these are the pitfalls that you want to avoid when forming a question. Here's some sample questions that you could ask. Describe your ideal employee for me. Tell me about your organization's culture. What is a typical workday for this position? What is the possibility for flexible working hours? How would this organization support me if I wanted to pursue another degree? What is the most unique characteristic about your organization? Where could I advance from this position? What do you like most about working for this organization? Tell me about the people I would be working with. So that is a list of sample questions. Of course, there are many other that you could ask. You could ask questions like, how would I be able to use my creative writing skills in this role? You could ask basically anything that isn't readily available on their website. You could even ask about what do you do for diversity and inclusion? What do you do to give back to the community? What is your training process like for new employees? Anything that you want to ask that gives you insight into, would I want to work here? Would it be a good fit for me? So this is your chance to quiz or to question them now on if you really want to work there. So you're going to ask one question of your partner, the recruiter, and the recruiter should have done enough research on the company to be able to sufficiently answer you. And finally, the closing and follow-up of the employment interview. So it's usually brief as you're winding up, and the recruiter will signal when you're winding down. You don't get to decide when the interview's over, they do. But at the end, you want to reiterate your interest in this position. You want to give a memorable closing statement so they can remember you and what you talked about in the interview, the value you would bring, and that you are really excited about the potential for this role. You want to discover what will happen next. So they should tell you, we're going to get back to you within a week via email, so be on the lookout for that. But if they don't, you can inquire, when can I expect to hear back from you, or who should I contact next for the next steps? Remember that you are being interviewed the entire time during this interaction. So in real life, all the way up until you walk back out to your car, you are being evaluated and judged. So you want to keep it professional all the way until the end. And in real life, I'm not requiring this for this class, but in real life, you'll want to follow up with a brief professional letter or email that same day that is thanking the interviewer for their time. You want to re-emphasize your interest in the position and then maybe remind them of one thing that you talked about. So let's say you spent a lot of time talking about your creative writing skills. You maybe want to remind them, like, I feel very confident that my creative writing skills would lend themselves well to this position, and I'm very excited for a future here. I look forward to hearing back from you. So you always want to follow up with a brief letter or email. So that is all for Chapter 8. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things to consider, but the biggest thing that you want to remember, is the STAR, PAR, and mini speech methods, that you have to use one of them for this interview. So that's all for this one. I'll see you next time.